Welcome back to the United Stand. Hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribing and get that bell notification turned on as well. Loads to talk about tonight, and I've been on for about a week. So lots has happened in the Man United space. Loads of transfer stories to bring to you. I want to get your opinions on them, though. I want your views. I want to know what you think and what you feel. Leave your comments in the live chat, or, of course, write them below if you're watching the playback of this. And I know some of you are expecting Goldbridge, but he will be live on That's Football once we're done for a watch along. You'll be redirected across. We actually redirected the Football Terrace audience over here. So everyone who's watching from my platform, the Football Terrace, welcome to the stream as well. Sorry I was a little bit late going late as well. I just want to say I had a problem with my computer. It had to be rebooted. So I'm sorry to keep you all waiting. But we're here, we're live, and we are kicking. Where do we start today? We're going to be talking Bryan Mbeumo, as per the title. A hijack conversation is being discussed again. We're looking at the striker options at Manchester United, with United now being ruled out. Okay, ruled out of a move for Victor Osimhen. We're talking Gyökeres. We're looking at the situation with Hugo Ekitike and what you think Manchester United should do. Plus, we're looking at the goalkeeper situation, because a name has come up today in Diogo Costa. We know that we've got a like and a want and an interest in Emi Martinez. Reports that United have sent a contract offer across and through to him. So we're talking on that and the need and the necessity for Onana to be replaced. Plus, we're going to be taking a look at the Duncan Castle story, as we mentioned as well. We want to get your views on that. We want to get your opinions on it also. But the striker market is one, because are we just going to go into the season with Rasmus and Xerxes as our number 9s again? That would be disastrous. There's no doubt. Disastrous. I don't think that can be denied. I don't think that can be challenged in any way, shape or form. But I want to start with the Bryan Mbeumo news tonight, and I will be going to your comments. I can see them. If I'm looking down here, I'm looking at your comments here as best as I can. But I want to start with Bryan Mbeumo. So Duncan Castles has stated that there's a good chance that Mbuemo moves to Tottenham. He said that the indication to Manchester United was that Bryan Mbeumo had chosen a move there. He'd verbally told them his preference was the move there. I've not heard anything exactly the same on that. I think there's a good chance that Mbuemo, should Tottenham get the price that Brentford are asking for, 70 million, that he might choose Tottenham ahead of Man United. And there's a couple of obvious reasons for that. One, it allows him to stay in London. And secondly, it allows him to keep playing. Sorry, allows him to keep player. It says here, keep player for Thomas Frank. Keep playing for Thomas Frank is, I think, what they mean. Now, for me, when I read this, I can't lie. For me, I find this frustrating. For me, I find this annoying. And the reason I say that is because I don't think Duncan Castles is being, at worst, fair. At best, I don't think he's challenging his sources enough. This idea that he hasn't, because I've not heard the same, that he's picked Man United, when every leading transfer expert anywhere has said that anywhere from he's turned the other clubs down through to his preference is Manchester United. The other element here, which I think is disingenuous to Tottenham fans and is there to wind up Man United fans, is this notion of, should Spurs get the price with Brentford agreed, he could pick them. This is so disingenuous. 99 times out of 100, clubs agree personal terms, get the players' buy-in before they send bids in. So for me, there is no... Again, we had it about a week ago that his mind might change. That was shut down very quickly. I just think we're getting regurgitated news here to wind up Manchester United fans. In fact, he may not even be meaning to regurgitate it. It might be a week old's worth of news that he's only now putting out, because he's just an old school mainstream media journalist who will will talk about it on a podcast today or publish an article today, but it might be information that's 2 weeks old. Because that's the way the media used to work, is you'd read a story today and think, and it was current, but but it might actually be information from a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. By the time that journalist republishes a story and says, oh, actually, now Man United have got the deal over the line, they're always behind. They're always behind the curve, and I think that's what a lot of this is. I get the frustration from Man United fans, though, and this is where I do agree with you, and I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed with this particular deal now. I just want it done. I just want it over the line. I just want the here we go. Of course, I don't want us to overpay. I don't want us to just bow down to Brentford and get... and sort of... I just don't want to bend over and be given a new one. At the same time, I'm getting frustrated at this same story being pushed week in, week out, that we might lose him, or we're going to lose him, or there's a major problem, when I don't necessarily think that there is. I'm going to go to some of your comments here. Some people are saying Glinios out. Duncan Castles must have been in a coma, is what United 65. I don't know if can the comments via OBS be put up on the screen? Is there any way of doing that at all if you're watching? I nearly called you Matt. Your name isn't Matt. Your name is something else, and my brain isn't working. How I forgot your name? Rob. If there isn't, then don't worry about it. But I wasn't too sure if there was in terms of the way you do your overlays. But this here from Greg Donald, he says, Mbeumo has already stated he wants Manchester United, one of our members here. Greg's spot on. Greg is spot on, he has. And I'm not blaming Ineos per se for this. I'm not blaming them. But I want us to hurry up and get the deal done so this nonsense can stop. The only way Tottenham get him is if Man United pull out of the deal. If we say to Brentford, look, we've offered 65 million all in, including add-ons, and you're asking for 75, you're asking for 80, we're walking away because the player isn't worth it. Again, I'm happy that we're not being screwed over. I'm happy that we're not bowing down to somebody. That's the only way Tottenham get him. He's picked Man United. We're his preference. He's waiting for us. There's been no credible suggestion that he wants anyone to go anywhere else. Ineos and Vavel and Barada have done their job by convincing the player. What we will judge them on is their negotiations with Brentford. And I'm not even sure if Tottenham would spend the fee that Brentford are asking for. I mean, it would be their record transfer fee. They're currently looking at Kudus. They're currently looking at Semenyo. The player hasn't committed to them in any way. So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of... here of fear-mongering when it comes to United fans. Linda here says, nice, not the Thunder. Okay, it's you guys talking to each other. Mbuemo can play with Cunha and Xerxes, I think, on the interchange. Yeah, they'll be very good with each other in that role. Terry needs Manscaped for his chest. Nah, bruv. Can't be taking that. That's itchy. I can't be doing that. Terry... Terry, be calm. The deal will get done the United way. It's a done deal. United are in advanced talks with Martinez. Are they in advanced talks? Is that something that's just broke? I know that we've potentially offered him a deal, and we'll get onto that a little bit later. But look, with Mbuemo, as I say, I just want us to get it done. I'm not patient. I understand these things take time, and all I'm really annoyed about is the way the media keeps spinning things. And it's funny, yesterday when there was reports that Spurs had called their interest, the world didn't go crazy. It's just when there's negative Man United news, every single person jumps on it because it's the biggest news around. So I do understand it. I just want it over the line so we can move on from it and people can stop running up their mouths again. In other news, actually, Emily here with the super chat actually says, also depends on who Duncan Castle's sources are. They could be pushing Brentford's agenda to push the price up. That's a really good point, Emily. That's a fantastic point. And that's why these communities were created, because whether it's me or whether it's Ricky or Beth or of course, Goldbridge, we don't think of everything. You're the most important part of this community. And it's a great point there, Emily, because he could just be pushing that agenda to push that price up. And again, United, this is where I know not all of us trust their owners. Not all of us trust the people that are running the club right now. But sometimes we've just got to learn to be a bit more patient, maybe. It's a really, really good point, Emily. Mike here says, evening, and thank you. Thanks for Terry time. How much of this waiting is legitimate and not the club being tightwads? Well, I would say this, Mike. I've got to... Sometimes people think I'm defending Ineos when in fact all I'm doing is being consistent. But if you haven't watched my content for years, you won't necessarily see the consistency. So one of the biggest things I've complained about is the overspending at the club. When a player's worth 50 million, we pay 70. When a player's worth 70, we pay 90. When a player should only really have cost 50, we've done 80 on him. We have done this so many times in the last 12 years. I estimate that we have overspent by about 400 million, and I estimate that we have undersold for about 200 million. If you just, for a minute, forget the dividends, forget the interest payments, forget the loan payments, forget the money wasted on players that weren't good enough. If you just look at underselling and overpaying, we've burnt 600 million quid. So I'm a massive advocate for taking care of the pennies because the pounds take care of themselves when it comes to your football club. I reject wholeheartedly this notion that you shouldn't care how much you spend because it's not your money. It is your money. It's your club's money. And look at Liverpool today. This is what happens when you set a high standard for negotiations. They are getting £30 million plus add-ons for Kwanzaa. Let that sink in. And I'm sorry to get irate about it, but I can't help it. Let it sink in. That isn't because they've got a good negotiator today. It's because they've had good negotiators for over a decade now. 30 plus million for Kwanzaa. We need to do better. And sometimes that takes time. We need to get these prices down. We need to pay more towards our valuation. We need to get a reputation. Like, ironically, like Brentford have got. Brentford and Brighton, for instance, those two teams are notorious for being hard negotiators. But they're notorious because they don't yield. So it stands them in good stead. We can't always yield, or we have to find compromises and become as formidable. But as fans, we have to help the club there. We have to drop our agendas and understand that. But I can't go against that principle that I've been pushing for over a decade. That's maybe why people see me as more supportive of the club. It's not because it's Ineos. It wouldn't matter whether it's Ineos, the Glazers, Qataris, Saudis, Elon Musk, Donald Trump. I'm just naming rich people now. Richard Branson. It doesn't matter to me. It's the principle I want in place, irrespective of who the owners are. I wouldn't want us, if we had Qatari money and no debt, to overspend. Because when you burn the candle at both ends, what happens? So important for us as a club. Now, moving on to the striker talk tonight. By the way, get that like button smashed, my beautiful people. There's quite a few to touch on here. And Ben Jacobs earlier on today says United's reported interest in Ugo Ekitike is just an inquiry at this stage. It doesn't mean much at the moment, as their main priority is securing the Bryan Mbeumo deal. He went on to say as well, I saw the clip from the United stand earlier on today. You should have all watched that show at the very least by now, by the way, that Manchester United have inquired, but then most big clubs around Europe inquire regularly about top talent that may or may not be available. So United have put that in there. It has been reported back by other sources that the player is open to joining Manchester United, but that is more one to keep an eye out on right now as opposed to one that's close. What's also been reported by Ben Jacobs is that Man United are not currently in the running for Victor Osimhen. Now, it was reported that contact had been made, United made an inquiry, but it's now been confirmed by Ben Jacobs that Man United are not in the running, and we're not in the race, and we are not trying at this stage to sign him. Now, for me, I'm disappointed. In fact, a little heartbroken because I rate this guy so highly. But the wages he's asking for are said to be astronomical. You are talking near to £450,000 to £500,000 a week. Manchester United are not convinced, when you look at the multiple sources together, this is my interpretation, that he truly wants Manchester United from a footballing standpoint. There is a, where can I go in Europe that gives me the most amount of money, that gives me the status that I want? And I don't blame him, by the way. I just don't think Man United are in a position to be doing that. For me, it just feels too much money. He'll score a lot of goals. He's an excellent striker. But again, I think it's setting a bad precedent. Is he going to deliver for us like all the other... Is he a £450,000, £500,000 a week player? I don't think so. If he comes in and does well, and then other players are doing well, everyone's going to want a pay rise to that level. And I don't know if that's healthy at this particular juncture. So there's just something in me, a gut feeling that says, I understand why we're stepping away. And I'm gutted. I'm gutted that we haven't been able to convince him to drop those wage demands like we've seen Nico Williams do with Barcelona. That's really gutting. The other piece of news in relation to strikers comes here in relation to Gyökeres. And this is from Ben Jacobs also, who says, just because Victor Gyökeres prefers Arsenal doesn't mean he's turned down Man United. There's no message from him in regards to outright saying no to Man United. Arsenal are in a more advanced position. And I spoke about this last week, and I said it again. We've got to keep the door open for this for at least a couple more weeks. Now, I'm saying speed things up when it comes to Mbuemo, but I'm also saying don't rush when it comes to the striker. Right now, don't rush. And I know we all want all these players in for the start of pre-season, which is, about 3.5 weeks away. But I don't want to rush. Ekitike is more expensive and has 2 or 3 teams that are ahead of us in that race, as an example. Mateta seemingly is going nowhere. Arsenal haven't made their minds up about who they're going to go for yet, and I want us just to be a little patient on this deal as a club. Maybe bide our time a little bit longer. And the reason I say that is this. I feel a little bit like, and how do I say this in the right way? I feel a little bit like if you've got to be at work at 10 a.m. in the morning and your drive to work is an hour, it would be stupid to leave at 9:30 because you're guaranteed to be late. It would be non-advisable to leave at 9 a.m. because one bit of traffic and you're going to be late. What would make more sense would to leave at 8:30. It gives you an hour to get there, half an hour of leeway. You'll probably get there a little bit early, but you can get yourself ready for the day at work. What I don't think you need to do is leave at 5 a.m. You don't need to leave at 5 a.m., get there at 6 a.m., and do nothing for 4 hours before your shift starts. That's crazy. And I'm looking at I use that analogy because I think in the transfer window, yes, you want all the deals in early. But you might execute on an early deal today that stops you getting a better deal in 2 weeks' time. We today could go for Ekitike, who I think would be a good signing. But I think Mark made such a great point earlier on this week where he said that it doesn't really fit what we're looking at, doesn't really see how it works. There's truth to that. But we do need to improve the striker role. Imagine we executed on that today and bring him in, and then Arsenal go for Šeško. And then Gyökeres is sitting there going, I'm available now. And we go, oh my God, we went too early. And a few people are saying, what? I don't understand what you mean by that. It's a very simple analogy. It should make absolute, complete and utter sense what I just said. It should make complete and utter sense what I just said to you all. You don't want to leave it too late in the window because you'll be too late. You'll miss pre-season. You'll miss the start of the campaign. It might take the player until November to get up to speed with your team. But you also don't want to go too early either, especially in this particular scenario. He hasn't said no to us. He's open to joining Man United. As the only time I think we need to speed up is one, if we're getting really close to pre-season, really close to the tour, and this is still standing still. Move on. I agree at that point. It would be sensible to move on. I also agree that if suddenly all the backups start being snapped up, so tomorrow Mateta signs a new deal, Liverpool put a bid in for Ishak. Newcastle then put in an £80 million bid for Ekitike. Šeško says, you know what? If I don't go to Arsenal, I'm going to go to Chelsea, and he agrees personal terms there. Then you've got to move. Then you can't pay the waiting game because if you miss out on Gyökeres, you're left with there's no one else left. It's a bit like Harry and Ron trying to find a date for the ball in the Goblet of Fire. I can't remember what the ball was called, but we all watched it. You don't want to be leaving it late because then you're going to get more rejections, and we've got a very emotional fan base. But there are times when I think you've got to be patient. And in the striker market right now, looking at this news around Gyökeres, I would say for at least another 10, maybe 14 days, reach out to other players, test the market, do some monitoring, seek some market opportunities. I'm using the buzzwords here, but just be a little bit more patient in that area. The Yule Ball, that's the one. The Yule Ball, 110%. And Ultra here says buying scraps, but you may end up buying scraps, and you've got to get the balance right. And we'll know whether the balance is right come the first game, second game, third game of the season. You'll see it. But the striker market is really interesting. What would you all do? We're not looking at Osimhen, so we can drop that as a talking point to a certain degree. You may want to say that's wrong, that's fair, but we're not going for him. So, Ekitike, Mateta, who are the strikers you would move on to? Šeško? Who are they? When would you start executing those deals? Or, let me reiterate that, because execute sounds like close. When would you start to try and advance those deals? When would you walk away from Gyökeres and say, enough's enough? We've got to move on to other targets. When would be that time for you? I'd love to know. Let's have a little look here. Talk about Mbuemo. We spoke about Mbuemo at the beginning of the show, my friend. Did I say Harry and Ralph? Harry and Ron. Sorry. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. I can't believe I forgot his name. Ron left it last and fumbled Hermione. No, he did fumble Hermione. Got there in the end, though. Maybe I did say Ron. Mateta is what Truth Seeker says. I hear you. Šeško would suit United. I'd like Šeško. I think Šeško's really good. The only reason he's being written off is because he's linked to Arsenal. That's the fundamental facts of it. It's the same as Zubimendi. The world was gushing, purring, going apoplectic. Is that a word? Is apoplectic a word? I don't know if it is. Apoplectic. Apoplectic. I said it wrong. Apoplectic. Yeah, it's the opposite of that then. I don't mean that. No, they weren't. They were angry. Angry that Liverpool were getting in. That's what I meant. And, like, they were angry that Liverpool were getting in because he was so good. Now that Arsenal were getting him, no, I don't think he'll fit the Premier League. I see that with Šeško. I'm not going to sit here and be that person. I rate him. I think he'd be really, really good. Really, really good. It is apoplectic. Maybe, you know what it was? It's my dyslexia. My brain got confused for a minute between ecstatic and apoplectic. And my head went wrong. Anyway, we move on. But for me, I really like him. Lee here says, we need another midfielder. That's worrying for me. I hear that. But I'd like another midfield player. And there hasn't really been very many links. There's been almost no movement in that area whatsoever. And there are a lot of talks of the likes of Antony and potentially even Marcus Rashford being back with the squad for pre-season as the club attempts to find suitors. But even then, it's because we're being quite strict. You know, Batiste want Antony on another loan, and we're saying no, he's got to be sold on or not at all. We're saying the same with Rashford. And at the moment, like, Rashford's options are being taken up because Williams is going to join Barcelona. Dani Olmo's staying. There's a few loose reports. Rafinha might leave, but then why would he leave? And then they bring in Rashford. They might as well keep Rafinha. So there's a few of these players coming back, and United have got to find suitors for them. And that was always going to be the hardest part of our summer for me, was selling the dead wood and was getting rid of these players. I also think what we've got to factor in is the window has just opened and we're still in June. And there is the potential here, and this is where it's nothing to do with Ineos and nothing to do with Man United in any capacity. There's quite a few teams in the Premier League, if you look at it, that have got PSR issues. So, for instance, Aston Villa are interested in Garnacho, but they can't make any kind of move for Garnacho until the new financial year. They just can't touch it. So they're staying as far away from it as possible. You'll probably find there's a number of teams like that. So, again, as much as we want everything done today ahead of pre-season, it isn't as simple as that because we're not the only moving part. It's almost like a chain in a house sale. You might have your money ready, your mortgage ready, or the cash ready. I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to move out. Give me the date. But you might have 9 other houses in a chain 4 of them are trying to get mortgages. One of them's just got sick. One of them's lawyer's done a bunk, or whatever it may be, and you're sitting there scratching your head. You're waiting and you're waiting. And I've got a friend who's been packed in their house in boxes for nearly 2 months waiting for a completion and an exchange date so they can move house and book their... And, they can't even book their removal drivers because they don't know when it's happening. If that happens in the housing market, you bet your bottom dollar. You bet your bottom dollar that it happens in the football transfer market. Clubs have got, all right, we'll do the deal, but we've got to wait for this financial period. We've got to find a replacement. We want to do X, Y, and Z first. Great, we found a replacement, but the club we're buying him from have got to find a replacement now, so we can't execute until they execute. We can't, and then when those things happen, then we'll exchange. They want to wait until this date because of this reason. They've found the replacement, but they've got to sell somebody else because they've got big PSR problems and they're in negotiations. These things are like dominoes. And sometimes it takes one deal, and people often go, and I've said this before, oh, you get one deal happen and it opens the market up. It's not just because it sets the standard of how much a player costs. It also opens up the market because you might find that there's 6, 7, 8 deals that are in a chain with one another. And you need one of them to complete so the rest of them start going through. And I know we hate that as fans, but it's not just our club involved. Not buying that as an excuse. We can organise deals now and sign all the documents on the 1st of July. This is true, Rory. We can organise these deals. But it doesn't, again, we're not the only people involved in this situation. You look at Kirkez as an example to Liverpool. They've been brilliant this summer. They've got 2 deals over the line. Kirkez has been going on for 3.5, 4 weeks now. As an example, you can get them in line and get ready to go. Zubimendi is. But look at the way Zubimendi's been publicised. The player's almost talking like it isn't happening. Sociedad are silent. Why? Because they have tax issues. And they're clearly sandbagging the deal so it moves into a different financial year so that those tax implications go away. But they're not going to publicise that they're holding back on a deal to get away with paying tax. Because that would be stupid to admit that. So therefore, you can't even put it in the media that it's been agreed, like officially, because it will cause a problem. So I listen, Rory, I get where you're coming from. It's not about excuses. And this is what you've got to remember. It isn't one size fits all. It's not you can't get a deal done early because you've got to wait to the new year. But there are multiple reasons. There are multiple reasons. And for Man United, the reason why we're not moving on with a lot of other deals yet and getting them ready is because we've got to sell players. That has been so well publicised, we can't get away from it. Most of the buying clubs haven't even started the serious talks yet because they're getting their ducks in a row. There's little we can do to speed that up. I don't necessarily blame us yet for that. I really, really don't. This here says, United do things that slow, can't work on multiple deals. It's pathetic, very important window for the manager until that happens. Don't take fans for mugs. I don't think fans are mugs at all. I think we are doing multiple things at once, though, because we were clearly negotiating with Mbuemo when we were negotiating with Cunha, whilst we were negotiating with Delap. At the same time, we were holding conversations with Victor Gyökeres. There's reports that we're quite well into talking to Emi Martinez's camp. We've been making inquiries into the likes of Ekatike. All of this is going on simultaneously. So I understand that we want to see 3 or 4 deals executed back to back to back. Don't be suckered in by City getting 3 deals done before the World Club Cup. Those deals got prioritised and rushed through, and they paid a little bit more on a couple of them than they wanted to, cash initially, to get them in for the Club World Cup. Wirtz only got done so early in the window because Bayern Munich and City had a chance of signing him for the Club World Cup, so Liverpool had to execute much earlier than they wanted to. Liverpool would have preferred to have dragged that on longer and try and got the price down further if they could. But they weren't able to do it because they had to move earlier. So it's not about saying you're a mug. I think you're right to have concerns. I've already said about the Mbuemo deal. I want to wrap that up now. But United also can't line up other deals to a point where they're ready to exchange the paperwork until they know we're moving these 2, 3, 4, 5 players on. I think we've known that for a long time. because I've known that for a long time, because I believe those stories, I'm relaxed about it. Do you know why other clubs aren't going to execute on those deals yet? Because this is what I mean by them. They want us to get desperate. And this is what will happen. They want us to get desperate, so we undersell. So we sell cheaper. Do you know when we get desperate? If we get all our deals lined up, ready to execute, and then we're under pressure to close them, and we've got to sell people, you lose power in the negotiation room then, Phil. Because the people trying to buy your assets know they've got to do this. If they can't get a... Let's go back to the house example. Imagine I've got to move house on Friday the 20th of June. If I don't move house on that day, I risk losing the house. If you phone a removal firm and say, I need a removal men Friday, can't do it, we're fully booked. Listen, I'm going to lose my house if I don't get this. You can bet your bottom dollar a few of those removal companies will go, do you know what? I think we can charge a little bit extra. We're gonna call in emergency staff for you. It's normally £500 for the move, but we're gonna have to charge you $750 for this one. Yep, no worries, bang, let's get it done. I need to move house. That desperation, and then suddenly a finite commodity becomes involved. You pay more for it. And now again, Phil, I'm not saying that's every example on every transfer, but all of these things are going on like this. That's why I love the transfer window, by the way. It's not just as simple as that. We need to underpay or pay the valuation, and we need to try and sell for the right value. If we get all our deals done ahead of time, as great as that is for the first team, we then undersell. That loss of money will impact us later on down the line, and we can't always... We've done this for 12 years. Cheap is expensive. We cut corners so regularly, we ended up damaging the structure. The integrity of the structure of our club was damaged, and look where we are. And overspending and underselling has been one of the key components in this. And we have to get better at it. I will take that to my grave. I believe in it. I believe it. Let's go for Šeško hard, force Arsenal's hand. The issue here, Lee, though, and again, I like Šeško. The issue here is Šeško wants Arsenal. So going for Šeško is exactly the same issue. Ekatike, according to the reports, prefers Chelsea and Liverpool. So again, we can't get these number 9 deals lined up and over the line unless we go back to what we were doing in the Woodward era with the Di Marias and with the Sanchez's that we hated, by going, oh, all right, I know you prefer Arsenal at 200 grand a week. There's 450 grand a week. Would you join? They'll change their minds then. But are they joining us for the right reasons? The answer's no. So it's going to... Some of these deals will take time, especially the striker. Especially the striker. So important. You can then argue, well, let's go get the midfielder and the goalie. Good shout. Then what then if we can't sell players? Then we don't end up with a striker. And I actually think the striker is more important than anything. We need goals. We really need goals. I'm not saying midfielder and goalie are not important, but we need goals so bad. But I love the conversation, guys. Really good dichotomy of conversation tonight. This housing analogy is too close to home for me. Sorry, William, but then United's true. And it is there. It's that I've been a salesman, although I had more professional titles as I got older, like corporate business development and corporate acquisition manager. I love that one. Basically salesman. Even when I was a private banker, I was basically a salesman still, and everyone tries, oh, no, I'm a relationship director. No, you're a salesman. It literally, they try and fluff these things up. And these sales processes are so similar right across the board. So much goes on at any one time. Amazing talking for an hour with actually no real news. There's loads of real news. And it's us having opinions on it. And this always takes me back to being a kid, an adolescent, a young man at work with my family, friends. You'd sit down, you'd have your dinner, you'd be in the staff room, you'd be in a classroom. I should have been working, but I wasn't. Did you see what the paper said? Did you see what this manager said? Did you read that story? Oh, and you talk about it every day. I don't know about your life. My life, I don't think there's been a day of my life where I haven't spent at least an hour or two speaking about football. Ever before the internet was invented. Well, YouTube. Always done it. Swap Casemiro for Paulinho. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that one personally. I'm not too sure about that. Goalkeeping, though, and we mentioned that. I think what's really interesting in the goalkeeping space is Diogo Costa is the name that United has discussed internally. There's reports that Ruben's really keen on him. There was a big report from South America today that United have offered a contract to Emi Martinez. Now, again, depending upon the publication and how scared they are of bad PR, that may be a verbal offer. It could be a WhatsApp message. It could be sent by smoke signals. But essentially, he's been offered. I think United have discussed the loose ends of personal terms with him. And Emi Martinez is supposedly absolutely bending over backwards to become a Manchester United player. And I love that. I love it. I want him as a United player. In fact, listen, as much as I want a striker, goalie ain't that far behind it. If someone said now you can only pick one goalie or striker, I'm going for striker. But I want a goalkeeper. I like Emi Martinez. I like Costa. I think both of them are such an upgrade on what we have. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable the level of upgrade that is. It really, really is. Abs here with a super chat says Mbuemo and Ahmad both being left-footed might make it difficult to include. I can't remember that word. I can't them into the same team. Include. I think you mean include. Include them in the same starting 11 defensively. Amorim better have a truck up his sleeve. Do you mean trick? Look, it's about variety. I'm not worried about it at all. This season, even if we sign an outright number 9, you'll see some games where Mbuemo and Cunha are used in a 9 position. False 9s most likely. Whether it be a change of approach in a game, whether it be from the start, one of them coming on as a sub. We need that versatility. There'll be games where Ahmad's right wing back. There'll be games where he's in the right 10. There'll be games where he might even be on the left. Amorim will never yield on his formation, but he changes the way you approach games and what the roles of people in said positions are. So I'm not worried personally about that at all. Mr. Bruno says, I would try ter Stegen. I just think he's past it, I've made my mind up on that one now. I think he is... I think he's past it. I think he's well past his best. If I'm being absolutely honest with you, I think he's well past his best. And I think Manchester United should be looking to move. Should be nowhere near that. How close before pre-season will it take for you to know Amorim is going to be hung out to dry by the powers above him, Terry? Well, I don't think we will. Again, I'll give you an example. If pre-season starts and Mbuemo's not in, we're no closer to a striker solution. Rashford, Onana, Sancho, Antony, all these players are back training and we're no closer to getting them out the door. If we're in that state, then I will probably be in the mindset of this feels really bad. If Mbuemo's done, if we've got a striker or we're close to getting a striker, if exits feel like they're starting to move along nicely, then I'll say we've done a decent job. I've said all along, I'd like at least 3 new players in for pre-season, for the start of pre-season training. I'm not going to say we have to have all of them in, because no club, from the best teams in the world to the worst teams in the Premier League next season, will have all their deals done before pre-season starts. Maybe Liverpool will buck that trend. Even United under Fergie, in our pomp, didn't have all our business regularly done before that. So I'm not going to set that as a standard. I can't set a standard. And by the way, that's not even a standard for the teams that are now at the top when they were building to become at the top. Nobody does that on a regular basis. So I won't hold my club to a standard that barely exists in football. But I'd like 3 players in, and I'd like to see movement in other areas, exits and other players that are going to hopefully join in the early stages of pre-season, as an example. I think that's really important that they get some game time in there. And yeah, then that's a good comment, and that's where I would be with it. This here from Emily. She says Martinez would be a more realistic price-wise, but is another deal they're timing everything due to Villa's PSR. Exactly. And this is also part of it. And I know people say get it wrapped up. Get it done so we know it's going to happen and just wait. But you've got to also remember about the PR element. And I'll give you an example. I don't necessarily know if clubs like. I'd love to see the numbers on the traffic that football clubs get when they announce players now versus 10 years ago. Now, they may get more numbers now. They might get more clicks because more people are using the internet. More people are on social media. But as a percentage of people that watch football or support United, clicking on their website, going onto their social accounts, I wonder if that's decreased or gone. My view is it's decreased. Because we get the Here We Goes and the Ornstein Bombs and the Jacobs Crackers. That's when we get our news. By the time it's officially announced, you go, hey, cheers. When's the interview out? I watched the interview. Oh, look at that picture of him holding a shirt. Clubs still want to create a little bit of a fanfare. Equally, we want to get a good price for Onana. So when we're talking to Villa, if we came to... This would be stupid of Man United. Let's just say we turn around to Aston Villa and we go, okay, we'll pay you 25 million. We'll pay 25 million. And we'll pay that all in a lump sum because you want 40, we'll pay 20, 25. We'll pay it all up front to guarantee the keeper. We're going to give you Garnacho with an obligation to buy, no buyout, but an obligation to buy, and it's 50 million. That way, we know we can spend that money. It's pure profit because we're going to get it in a year's time. We can work out something, even if we borrow the money for a year and pay a very small yield on that. Maybe you can charge them the yield, right, by loan fee. They'll cover all these wages too, Garnacho. But we may say to them, we need this kept as hush-hush as possible. We need it denied and pushed away every step, every minute, every second of the day. There's only one bit of rationale here. Why? Well, because we've got to find a buyer for Onana. If we tell the world he's rubbish, if we announce that the deal for Emi Martinez is going through on the 1st of July when the new world kicks over, that's going to 110% damage the sale price of Onana. And clubs will go, well, United now will be desperate to get rid of him. Let's hang on and get him as cheap as possible. So we've got to be really, really careful in relation to that. De Stegen or Oblak? Neither. I think they're both past their best now. I'd rather somebody else. Look, I want to thank each and every single one of you for tuning in this evening. This is going to redirect you over to Mark, who's live on That's Football for the Inter Miami. Man like Lionel Messi. I assume Messi's playing, but of course David Beckham's team playing at the Club World Cup. All of you get across there now and go and support Mark. Thank you for tuning in. I know we don't always agree, but that is the point of this community, to have these conversations. And I love some of the challenge in here tonight. Absolutely amazing. Until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again.